Before we start, in remembrance of December 7th, 1941, I'd like one moment of silence, please.
Amen.
Thank you. All rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Director Lopez, roll call, please.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bolin.
Present.
Commissioner Leonard.
Present.
Commissioner Vice Chair Metcalf.
Present.
Commissioner Duran.
Present.
Commissioner Bacon.
Present.
And Chairman Halby.
Present.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
So the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from October 5th.
I make a motion we approve the minutes from October.
I second the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. New business. We have Cool PZ 221041, a major site plan application submitted by Bryce Turnett and David Jolivet of Tetra Tech Inc. in conjunction with Signal Energy on behalf of EDP Renewables of Houston, Texas, for an industrial solar facility located generally between Bartlett Road, DeCleck Road, Lateral Fast Track Road, and State Route 87 in Coolidge, comprising of 1,242 acres. Director Lopez?
Yes, Chairman Halby, Commissioners. If you recall, this is actually, it was called Vale Solar before and also AKA Randolph Solar. This conditional use permit was approved in 2018 and it came before you, and then we had a slight modification in 20 where we actually filled in a little piece that was 110 acres, I believe, and then we left off more, so it actually was a reduction in overall area. I know the group that worked with us on the overlay supported that at the time, so it was approved. So right now we're at the site plan portion of this, where we're looking at the site plan and we reviewed it to 2018 standards, and we're bringing that before you. And I think Phil's going to do a real quick synopsis of it, and we have the applicant and all the engineers and everybody here to answer any questions we may have. And then also want to mention that the hearing tonight is for everybody within 300 feet of the property. And so that way, so it's not a regular public hearing, it's just for everybody within 300 foot of the, that's how we do site plans, right? So the conditional use permits already been done, the entitlements are already in place. Now it's just so they can actually finish their civil drawings and the architectural drawings and get everything in so we can issue permits. All right? Thank you.
Good evening, members of the commission. I'm just going to basically make reference to the graphics that we have on the overhead that are in your packet. I described to most of you the additional information that was included with it was a zoom-in area of the crop dusting facility that's within this solar facility, as we had an inquiry from the ownership there wanting to double-check the statuses of like the fence and things at the southern end of their runway. So I'll take a run through this. So as you can see, this is the project here. Just adding up all the parcels together outside of their net usage, but the gross, acreage here is 1,200 acres, a little more than that. It is located within the land uses of the agricultural aspect in the urban neighborhood, as you can see. On the zoning exhibit, we also have two designations here. Once again, coming down to the ag and also the I-2 designation here. This is the cover sheet for the plan sets that they had submitted to us. And this is basically their index sheet that basically is the overall project here. Now, what they've done is they've broke it down. They call it figures 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's basically the next 4 pages. On a couple of them, I've got some dotted areas around it that are intended to be zoom-in areas that are the very next slide behind that. North is looking this direction, given its orientation is sort of a rectangle. So the very first area we're looking at here, let me back up, is this one right here. You can see the crop dusting airstrip here, the facility. This is the north end of the boundary. So this is just a little bit of a zoom in here. There's greater detail that we have down here, but this gives you an overall idea of how the distribution of their facility is going to look in this particular sheet. Now here is the next one down, moving from the north to the south. This is one of these zoomed in areas here. Like I said, we had an inquiry wanting to double check where the fence line was relative to their facilities. As you can see, their access road internally to the project here actually makes an accommodation here so that the fence line, as demonstrated by these circles and these lines here, provide adequate distancing from this particular end of the runway. So they have taken into account the aspect of the existing operation there relative to their improvement that will occur. So I'll go on a little bit here. If there's some other questions after this, I'll answer those. But let's go ahead and go on to the next one. This is the next step down, once again moving from the north to the south. This is a zoom-in area that I picked because this kind of demonstrates kind of the busiest area of the detail here. Here you can see there are facilities that are going to be on site. This is the adjacent fence line, landscaping that's oriented in front of that, designations for the right-of-way here. These gray areas here are their internal access roads, and these hatched yellow areas here are actually going to be the improvements along the major roadways that are still public right-of-way. So that's a good demonstration of kind of the busiest area there. It kind of lets you see of everything that's been going on, or will be going on, I should say. And last but not least, this is the last grid. We had moved from the north to the south on the prior 3. This one, we moved a little bit to the west. This is actually going to be their gen-tie area to their power delivery. And the zoom in here, a little harder to see. It's always a little clearer on the computer, on the paper. Hopefully you guys can see it a little better there. But this is just a nice little zoom in detail so that you can see their proposed locations, access road, tying into the remainder of their facilities. So that's a real quick. I think I'll go back to the base map here, and we can always move back and forth. Once again, remembering that this is oriented toward. So that's the general portion of this portion. Any questions initially here?
I do, actually, the end of the runway?
Yes. Oh, up or down here?
Yes,
Okay, hang on. Right there?
there you go. What's the length of that?
The length of the runway or
From the end of the runway to the fence line?
Well, they have a dimension here from this particular point here to this particular area noted as 113 feet. I think the runway here extends out a bit. Obviously, they're going vertical. I'm not an aeronautical or airplane guy, and I don't know how high you have to be taking off from here. But this distance, and I'm sure our people here would be able to address that, but hang on a second here before we have any of the applicants speak, so just give us a second here.
And Mr. Chair, I met with John Pugh, who owns the landing strip, and I gave him a copy of all this, and he was going to be out of town. So I told him if he had any issues, he just wanted to make sure that what we talked about in the beginning, Rick and I met with him, and I know Jakob Anderson and St. Holdings met with him and made sure he had additional runway area. And I think Dave Neely can probably cover that, but that was, he saw that. I gave him copies on Saturday. He took it with him. I haven't had a call that he was concerned about anything. He just wanted to make sure that the extra area was there and that there weren't any really tall fences at the end that his planes might hit. So I told him maximum 6 foot height.
So
Shouldn't be an issue.
my concern, Gilbert, is ICAO standards for runways. It's
This is a
300,
private crop duster, right?
300 feet runway.
It's not a federal runway.
This is a crop duster runway. It's been there for a long time.
This is just a private runway. Nobody else uses it but him.
It's on a map. It's on an aviation map as a runway. Sarita Airport.
This is not Surrey. This is Mr. John Pugh, a crop dusting operation off of this little airstrip. He's the only one using it. So it's not it's not a public airport, it's just his own private runway. And again, we've reached out to him, and he was, we met with him when we were talking about the conditional use permit. The landowner met with him, I think. Allowed him to have some additional property on the north end of the landing strip, or where the runway is.
My concern is aircraft have incidents all the time. I'm in the aviation industry.
Yeah, I understand that.
They need that room for emergencies.
Do you think that this is not sufficient room?
I don't know. I just know what the industry stands.
Yeah, he didn't seem to be concerned about the location of the fence in proximity to the end of the runway. And he's been flying for many, many years.
I get that. My concern is the next guy.
Mr. Chairman, I think the best way to proceed would be to let the city finish the presentation.
Sure.
Let the applicant present. I'm sure they can address any questions you have.
Thank you. Please, Phil.
Oh, thank you. I'll go back to the base map here. Now, obviously, we'd like to have the applicant come shortly after, but I believe there's some other things that we had a conversation with them late this afternoon that Gilbert and Rick can highlight a little bit on that we bring to your attention, so.
And Mr. Chair, we can hear from the applicant first if you'd like. The only thing we had was some areas where, if you look it down on the left side where the, actually I got my, right here, where there's some landscaping there, that's not really supposed to be there. I don't think John Pugh would want that right near where his planes take off. So that was placed there because it was originally in this area, so it needs to be removed. And then also, we're not requiring any landscaping on the southern portion. As you remember, there was some properties that were dropped off, so we only require landscaping along right-of-ways or areas where there's vehicular traffic, and so it wouldn't do any good over here where there's vacant fields right now.
That's that 112 acres that they...
The fill-in was about right here, and then there were some parcels here that we dropped off that weren't part of this project. Yeah, so we're requesting that this portion be dropped off as far as requirement for landscaping, and then this piece right here by John's Pugh's strip where he turns his planes. It won't, nobody will see it. So the only change we have, and then potentially we talked to David Neely about these areas here that are being paved and so what happens is SRP's agreed to pave some of Randolph and some of Vale. So what we're requesting is that linear footage of chip seal be moved up here next to the runway area, at least down to where that entrance is here, and then to the east along Bartlett Road, and as much as can be done so we can have that road improved. In exchange for this portion that they won't have to do because SRP is doing a full asphalt pavement of Randolph, Vale, and then they're coming back on Kleck. So if something happens with SRP and they don't come through that, then we would still want them to come down and do the chip seal, but we have faith that SRP is good for their word and they've told us they're going to do that. So that's what we're proposing, just to move the linear footage of chip seal up to the top here. And that's all we have at this time, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Mr. Lopez, is the road between Bartlett and Randolph going to be chip sealed which would be the west side of that property? Where the green belt is across the bottom there?
So this, you said on Bartlett between Randolph,
Yeah, Bartlett to Randolph.
yeah,
Is that going to be chip sealed?
believe so. It's chip seal, right?
Pretty sure. That's where the graphic is. We can go.
Yeah, so our conditional, it does require,
See, right?
yes,
Yeah, you
it's
see-
required to
you
be
can
chip
see
sealed,
right there.
along with landscape.
Right there.
It's on the drawing there, so it shows it on your drawings.
So to let me understand, you're going to chip seal on the north side of Bartlett? I'm sorry, my microphone likes to turn itself off. You're going to chip seal, they are going to chip seal on the north side of the project, including and going around on the east side down to where Mr. Pugh enters his airport or his area that he's using for crop dusting.
Correct,
an
and then
airport.
if there's some more left, we'll go west on Bartlett to the next street, however far we can go down that way.
And then you're going to do the north to south stretch of Bartlett to Randolph, and then you're going to do Randolph east to Fast Track, is that correct?
Yes,
So
Yes.
that, all the yellow that I'm looking at there is going to be chip sealed.
correct. So that goes across. Yes, and that's on, it should be marked on your plan, that it's chip sealed.
It is the proposed chip seal area, it doesn't say that it's going to be, it's just, that's the proposed area that we intend on doing. We intend on them doing.
Yeah, if we left proposed in, that means it's required.
Okay, so that'll be part of the building permits that they'll be issued.
Yeah, they'll be issued right-of-way permits from engineering, and Ben Navarro will oversee that.
Okay. Go ahead.
That was, Mr. Chair Gilbert, that was my question. But for ease of, well, that's what confused me, because on the staff report, the staff comments, I think what we're looking at is under the conditional use permit that was originally approved, all of the chip seal that was required is still required. The suggested change, however, is that assuming SRP does what it is that they have said they're gonna do, then it's not, there's an option about some additional paving that could occur either to Bartlett or Fast Track.
Commissioner Leonard, that's correct.
Okay. I would be remiss, well, I guess my question is, if the conditional use permit has already been approved, we're able to make a change to the conditional use permit through site plan approval?
Well, we look at it as an adjustment to the asphalt. I mean, since they're putting in asphalt, it wouldn't make any sense to chip seal it and then come back over the top.
Yeah, Mr. Lopez, I
but-
don't disagree with you, but the problem I've got is, and I'm not gonna use a 10-point word. I'm concerned that we have an existing conditional use permit that we're referencing in the major site plan, and then using the major site plan to potentially change what was in the conditional.
Okay, yeah, because they prefer probably not to even do it if SRP's doing it, but we were trying to get, unless we come back, we ever ask our,
I'm just trying to make sure that whatever, Mr. Chair, we might want to do here, and I'm not suggesting I disagree with the notion, but you got a conditional use permit that is directing us, and I'm not aware that we could modify a conditional use permit with a major site plan.
yeah, we'll ask our attorney to see what. We'll get
Aren't
the
you
legal
glad you
advice
showed
here.
And then,
And
'cause
then those
to give
are
it maybe
public
some
right
more
of way.
cover.
Yeah, so these are public right of ways, so I don't know if, the conditional use is usually to the property. So I don't know if that makes a difference. Maybe Dennis can.
Well, maybe to give him some more time to, to discuss, because the other thing that I'll just put out there, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, I'm a little uncomfortable saying we're dependent upon a SRP, whoever, third party to potentially do something to then affect what's going to be approved tonight. So in any event, there's a couple of things in there that I'm sure the city attorney wasn't necessarily looking forward to when he showed up.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Leonard, I think those are really good questions. If the commission's okay, we could continue with the presentation, have the rest of the questions answered, and then we could do an exec session with regards to the legal advice, if that's okay.
Any other discussion?
I'll let these guys present then.
Yeah, let them do it for now. Can we hear from the applicant?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioner. Appreciate the time. Good to see you again. David Neely with EDP Renewables, project developer here. Got a whole host of team folks here, technical folks, so any question you may have, we should have the right people here to answer it. The one question that came up was with the airstrip. The CUP requires 100-foot by 1,000-foot clearance of that airstrip to the south. That was requested by the neighbor. In our design, we actually provided more than that. So I don't have the exact number, but the 1,000-foot probably, I mean, this is probably 12 to 1,300 foot of clearance to the south, as far as where that fence line is. So that 6-foot fence is going to be in that, roughly that dimension to the edge of the strip. So, and that was at his request. He wanted 1,000 foot. So, so just wanted to answer that.
Is that
question.
1,000 from the end of the runway?
1,000 feet from the end of the runway, yeah.
Perfect.
I don't think it shows here. Let me see. I thought one of the maps that actually showed our old 1,000-foot, what we call like a limit. But yeah, it must be updated. So the red line is what we call limited disturbance. So that one is above and beyond the 1,000-foot request from the edge of that airstrip. So, yeah.
Mr. Chair, maybe proof that I tried to read this, but it was a little difficult. Are there any, in the flight plan, do we know of any battery storage facilities that are in the approach or the overflow or the runway?
There will be no storage contemplated near that airstrip.
Okay.
I say near, but like we're in the vicinity of that airstrip.
And then, Mr. Chair, if I can, just one question I have relative to what I see in the staff report, and then others may come up. The staff report notes there's private wells on the site. Do you have an idea of what you're doing with those sites as the project progresses?
Wells for the water? Is the water wells, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
The water wells that are active are primarily on the eastern border. The only one that remains on our property is the very northeast corner, which would be up to the top left here. The other ones end up being on the neighboring property. The ownership of those wells was retained by Yacht. I know they've got a lot of other developments in the area, so I think they might have some plans for that water. The land, I guess we do have the grandfathered water rights to the land. And then we just had this conversation, but it's a very complicated issue that I don't have any answers quite yet as far as what we're doing with the water rights but as of right now, we don't have any plans to utilize those wells, and I know Yacht other purposes. I can come back up if there's further, so. Sure. Can you slide to that last page, Phil? Last one. I can just talk, so we just have one approach, one main substation road. It's built to the fire chief. It's got the beefed up width and specs for the fire truck to access the substation. The substation's sited there mainly to minimize any additional overhead power lines being built in the area. It's roughly, I think, 0.4 miles. It's going to cross, there's some pipelines to the west. It'll cross those perpendicularly and then head straight south. SRP's property.
Are you connecting into the existing power plant?
Yes, there's two, what we call points of interconnection there on SRP's plant. Their power plant actually connects to a different power system. It's a higher rated transmission system, and we're attaching to the lower rated one, but it's that existing substation there. So there's no, say, new build of that facility.
It appears from what I'm looking at on the maps and what you've got there that the area that's wide open there that says proposed BESS storage area, I don't know what BESS is.
BESS is a battery energy storage system.
So that's where the batteries are probably going to be?
Yeah, for developers, what we do with solar developments, if needed, so in this area, there's no additional land. I assume you guys don't want to permit any more additional
I think that's probably a good guess.
Accurate.
Yeah, that's probably
So-
a good, yeah.
What we do here is we just set aside land for the potentials, because I think, I know batteries, what we've seen here recently with them, but that's going to evolve, and we're not sure where that's going, but obviously there's going to be so much better technology to utilize. So we're just withholding an area for that potential, because every solar system will need.
So at this time, nothing is planned to be done in that area?
Yep, this site plan is without a.
And then the proposed power will be down, well, closer to the lagoons, it looks like,
Yeah,
on my picture.
the route literally goes to the west, straight south, and that's all been approved by the ACC as far as the CEC permit that's required for our new substation, and then the facilities to connect it to the existing one.
And you've got across the tracks from you, you've got Stinger Welding's commercial site there, so you're not close to any houses as far as I can tell. Is that correct?
So I didn't catch your question.
I said, you have Stinger Welding to the west of your site, and then you have houses to the southwest, but they're a good distance away.
They are a good distance away, but they were within the CEC's notice requirement area, so all of those folks were notified, and we actually extended that out to just not clip the neighborhood, so we captured all of them. And I don't have any names or anything in front of me, but it was similar to the response to the CUP we had here. There was very minimal response, and it was to the support. So I won't even wade into those waters, but I will just say that the Randolph community didn't show any hesitation or opposition to the notification of our project.
All right, that's the questions I had. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
Any further questions? No? We break for executive session?
Motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion to go into the executive session.
I move we break for an executive session.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair, you need a motion to get out of executive session. A motion, a second, then you vote, and you're back in session.
You want to do that now, or do you want to wait?
We'll wait till Dennis gets back.
Thank you, sir.
No, thanks.
I got one.
Question is, in the pocket.
about 4 days.
Sweet.
It's good.
That better be.
It is. It came from Mexico though, but it was made in the United States.
Made in the United States, parts from Mexico.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was some, took my wife to the dentist down there last week,
Yeah.
and she got a whole mouthful of new teeth. They're not done yet, but they still have some caps that have to go on the posts and stuff like that. But as I was sitting out,
My very first job with the flag here in town. Yeah. No, nobody said anything about he was gonna get sprayed with dangerous chemicals. Used to mix it. Better on. Yeah, then go eat lunch. Your peckle of yak.
Mr. Director, I'd like to make a motion to close the executive session.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right. So at this time, we'd like to open this up to those within 300 feet. Welcome to come to the podium and speak. No? Okay. So no takers? Are you within 300 feet?
I farm across the street from it, that counts, and I can represent the
You have something that identifies tonight? You have something that shows the owners want you to represent them at this hearing tonight?
No, it's just verbal, but I'm fine.
Is that okay? Thanks.
Okay. All right. At this time, we'll close that invite to those within 300 feet. And we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, let me get my ducks all in a row here. I move that we approve Cool PZ 221041, the major site plan, with one caveat, that if, when it comes time to seal coat
Chip seal.
the roads, that if a road has already been paved, that they move the 1,954, 50 feet and 4.5 tenths of an inch of seal coat to another location, or chip seal, whatever.
So, Commissioner Metcalf, the site plan Commissioner Metcalf, the site plan is going to be approved, but consistent with the CUP as it related to chip sealing, and you're just saying if one of the roads that was identified in the CUP has already been paved, that same linear feet of chip seal would be added consistent with the map that's before you tonight.
Absolutely. That's what I said. You say it better than I say it.
The paid lawyers.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Reports from the chairman or director.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have a lot of good activities going on. Of course, you're aware we did Procter & Gamble, and our Marriott hotels moving forward. They're ready to, they have submitted their civils, so we're going to issue at-risk grading permits to them. Also, some other projects that are happening, Riliberto's over north of our existing Chinese food restaurant on the boulevard is got all their plans, and yeah, Filiberto's. Is that what it is?
Roberto's.
Yeah. Some of the Berto's restaurants, and so they're going to. They've got their civils and all their architectural plans in, and they're going to hopefully get done with those pretty quick, and then we'll set some activity there. So we have quite a few things happening.
You know, we all want to know about Burger King.
I talked to I talked to Burger King just the other day. I sent them an email, and they said they're still coming. It's just an issue of the of really the supply chain, and there's a couple of things they're working out with ownership. But he said, don't give up on them; they're still coming. And I sent that message forward to Rick so he could believe me, because he gave me a hard time. So I told him, I said, you know, if you guys aren't going to show up, somebody else may come up and take that spot. So it's trying to kind of convince them to hurry up. So anyway, Rick, have you think of anything else that we're working on?
Oh, just exciting times. I mean, it's going to be in this community with all the things that are happening. We have the storage projects that are going on. We mentioned the hotel, Roberto's, Lucas Chicken going in the old Circle K.
Push the mic, please.
Lucas up there on Vakayan and Arizona Boulevard. The Procter & Gamble project is significant. I attended a Board of Supervisors meeting today on an IGA that we're going to have with them. We have a gas station island that's going to be built just on the south side of Shope's. They're going to put in some gas pumps there, which is another nice addition to the area. We said they could do it as long as the gas prices were about $3.11 like they are in Casa Grande. I was just kidding, I didn't say that, but I just thought I had a little humor there. So a lot of good things happening in and around town.
The airport too.
I don't know why this is doing this. We need to figure that out, but sorry about that, everybody in the audience. Said I just don't like it. So, it's just a lot of things happening. We're very busy. We're responding almost weekly to other requests for, projects, big projects, industrial projects. A lot of roadway improvements. improvements at the wastewater treatment plant that are going on. I mean, I just can't even think of the big long list, but plenty going on around town.
Nice to see you, Rick.
Good to see you.
Can you expand on the Procter Gamble, or we have to wait?
Well, you know, they made their announcement. They made their official announcement. We're meeting with their, one of their engineer managers that will be overseeing the construction project tomorrow, along with some of their other principals. And several of the, we talked to them about this major site plan review process, which will be before the Planning and Zoning Commission, hopefully in the near future. We'll talk about that process, which does require your approval. It's not a zoning issue because the property's already been zoned, but they will be in with a major site plan. I fully expect that once the site plan is approved, if they do everything the way they would like to do it, they'd start, you know, getting grading and drainage permits shortly after, and then moving forward with building plan reviews and building this thing out over the next, you know, 4 or 5 years, I believe. I think there's going to be phased. It's not going to happen all at once. About 2 million square feet total, $500 million capital investment, 500 jobs. And so, you know, we were one of, they said, reported at the meeting, we were one of 500 sites that they had considered in the southwest region. And they picked Coolidge, which was really pretty awesome.
That is awesome. That's very good for us. We need those jobs.
Airport, a lot of good things happening at the airport. Finally got the road opened to the airport. That was an inconvenience for a lot of, many weeks.
It's hard to cook pancakes on Sunday.
I know, I'm glad that's open. You know, we're working with San Carlos Irrigation Project, Power, to bring additional power out. Hopefully by the middle of March, April, we may see some additional power out there to support some of the economic development efforts that are ongoing there with E-Cube and potentially AIM and Daycraft weapon systems. And so there's a lot of good things.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question with regards to, has the city had conversations recently, or would they entertain conversations with Skip regarding overall energy demand for future growth relative to existing supplies? And the reason why I ask the question is, better part of the last year, we've been, at least on the water side, trying to address issues associated with loss of hydro. And one of the things we're running into is SRP, APS, Tucson Electric, and a number of the other Southwest area providers looking at is brownout issues, blackout issues, and just a lack of particularly peaking demand. So are we, or have we in the past, or looking to the future about talking with the electrical providers in the area about, can they address not just load when it's available, but peaking and things like that?
We can have those conversations. We have not. I will tell you, several years ago when we were talking with Skip about bringing power to the airport, they said, you're out of luck. You don't have any additional capacity. Go find someone else to provide power out there for you. That changed a little bit with some staff changing. So we do have some contacts there that I think are a little more receptive to having those conversations, but we can have some more of those if you'd like.
Any other questions? All right. At this time, we'll open the floor to call to the public. Anybody like to speak? Please come to the podium.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thanks for letting me have a word up here with you folks. Thank you for doing the job you're doing. Appreciate you all. It's hard work. I brought in earlier, and I believe Gilbert distributed a couple of pages that will help some of you understand the taxes that are collected from solar. And this is a question that we've often had. Nobody really had the answers. And I know we asked many times, well, how much did the city of Coolidge actually collect in taxes? And nobody really could answer that question, partly because it's not collected directly by the city or the county. The state collects it. They're centrally valued properties. So they're actually too complicated for the cities or counties to actually collect them, because the use is spread around between everyone. And so the state collects those taxes, and then it redistributes them back to the city and back to the county. But you'll notice on these two sheets that I've given you, if you look at this first larger one, it says at the top, statute 42-5159, that's Arizona statute, and it's into law right now, and these list the exemptions. So when this solar equipment is being taxed, there are big pieces of it that are exempt from the value. The true depreciable value is reduced dramatically. And this explains how that value is reduced. If you look carefully, the first line on first page, the tax levied by this article does not apply to the storage, use, or consumption in this state of the following described tangible personal property. Storage, basically, they're referring to battery storage. And then if you go, and I apologize, these pages are not numbered, but about halfway through it, it's number 53. I can't tell you what page it's on. The renewable energy credits are also exempt from being taxed. The next page, particularly section B, in addition to the exemptions allowed subsection A of the section, the following categories of tangible personal property are also exempt. And there's a whole long list of them. One is machinery or equipment. Number two, machinery equipment used directly. The other is in manufacturing process. Tangible personal property sold to persons engaged in business. Number four, machinery equipment or transmission lines, transformers, control equipment. These are all exempt from taxation. You'll notice then clear down under 5B, I don't know if you're caught up with me, you can read it on your own time, but it states energy storage, meaning commercially available technology for electric utility scale that is capable of absorbing energy, batteries, in other words. So from what I can discover from reading through this a few times, basically approximately 50% of the actual value of these industrial solar facilities, only approximately 50% of that is actually taxable, is the depreciable amount that's taxable. And then there's a two-page paper that I've included also, and this is statute 42-13056. I don't know if you have it in front of you, hopefully, but this gives a great example of the 10-year declining rate. So in year one, the value, the depreciable value, which is only about 50% of the is taxed at one. It's 3% times about 50% of the true value at times 100%. And then in year two, it's also 3% of about 50% of its value times 90%. In year three, it's 3% of 50% of 80%. And it continues to go down each year by 10%. And so when you finally get to year 10, the tax is 100%, but of only about 50% of the value, the depreciable value, and then it's times 10% because that's the final year. And then it's not taxed after that. In year 11, it goes to the same equivalent rate as ag tax, which is the lowest tax. And since I'm a farmer and I've got one more second up here, the reason ag tax is the lowest, it's the same as your house tax, is because agriculture pays taxes on all these other things, so they don't hit you hard on your value of your farm property. So they give you a break right there. But there's a second page on there, and this kind of maybe puts it in black and white, and these are close, they're estimates, they're not exact, so don't hold me to that. But I've actually done the math on an example on this page right here. And so if you take about a 320 acre facility, which we are aware of, at least one in our city, within our city limit, well, excuse me, in our county, that's approximately $20 million project. So if you do the math, and you can see on this, for example, year one, if it were a full year, it'd be 3% times the depreciable cost, which would be only about 10 million, because they're only going to, that's all that qualifies to be taxed, times 100% in the first year. So that yields about $300,000 total in tax. And then year two would be 3% times, again, 10 million, but it's times 90% because it's a declining rate. And that second year is 270,000 in tax. And it continues on down. And they're all, every year is approximately the same. It's around $300,000 until you get to year nine. Year nine is 24% times $10 million depreciable amount, times 20%, which is $480,000. That one's the biggest so far. And then year 10, it's finally 100%, but it's only 100% on 10 million, only on half of its value. And then it's times 10% because it's the final year. And that year is actually $1 million. But if you add those up, those 10 years, it's about $3,820,000 on a $20 million project. So in fact, we do get some tax dollars. And of course, that's only a piece of that comes to us if it's in the city limits. Now, this particular project here is 320 acres. This wasn't even in the city limits. So this just goes to the county. And some of it, I'm not even sure. The state will keep some of it as well, but they figure that out. So if that helps, if you might have to read this a couple of times, to actually digest it. But hopefully I've helped you understand that. And is there any questions at all?
Hitchcock, this isn't on the agenda, so you have a right to address them and present it.
Oh, okay.
But they can't ask questions about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you can call me anytime. So, all right, thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to come to the podium? This is a public hearing, or call to the public. All right. No takers. We'll close the call to the public, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.